Hello, hello, hello. How are we doing today? I think we're live. How's it going? Just be a quick live stream, talk about whatever we want. Probably be live for like an hour or so, chat about all things tech, software engineering, whatever else we want to talk about. Hi, Modi? Hey, Meng, I think. Names are so hard. See, give a roadmap to build a successful resume. So I guess it depends a little bit on like what exactly your goal is and where you're currently at. Like it's hard to like think about a resume in terms of a roadmap, right? Like a resume is more of a way to describe the roadmap that you actually took. So I don't know if I would think about it necessarily that way, but just like big picture wise, make sure you have like education on there. Make sure you have whatever projects it is that you've been working on there. If you are applying for like your first dev job, then more projects because you need to somehow showcase that you actually have these skills. And then obviously as you uh, do more work in the actual industry, you kind of replace the projects with those things and try to essentially like tell a story with the resume of what exactly is it that you bring to the table for whatever company you're applying to. Hope that kind of helps. Yeah, I don't know. Kind of a hard question answer. Devin fails, right? What do you mean by that? Is getting a gaming laptop better than a PC for gaming and programming? So on the programming side, you can use basically whatever computer you want. It doesn't really matter. Like we're basically just editing text files. Um, so if that computer happens to be a gaming computer because you're into gaming too, by all means do that. But you can use pretty much any computer that was made post like 2000, I don't know, 14. What's that? 10 years ago. Anything around that age, you'll be fine. Let's see. What do you think a developer should learn when he already knows a lot about the frameworks he uses at work? Um, I mean, I don't think you like. I sort of fundamentally disagree with this idea that like developers need to be constantly learning new things all the time, and that's just so important. I think it can be important, like it can be good to learn stuff, but the idea that like you need to constantly be learning new things just for like the purpose of learning, I think is a little bit overkill. But if you want things to learn, I would say one, just like try to keep up with trends in whatever area it is that you work in. And then find something that's interesting, right? Like find some passion project. Like I know developers who by day build like React components, but on like the weekend have some game they're working on, right? Like, so just find something you're passionate about and you can try to do that a little bit. But I also wouldn't like overly stress about trying to constantly learn new things. Yeah. Robotic person, I don't really know about the masters in statistics because I don't have a master's in statistics. It's hard for me to answer that question. Let's see. How to achieve unique thinking while developing software? I don't really know what you mean by unique thinking. Does a referral work? Is it stronger than the actual skills? So a referral at like a big tech company, Google, Facebook, etc., essentially fast tracks you to make sure that a recruiter actually looks at your application. Beyond that, the referral doesn't do all that much. So like I used to get people asking me all the time to refer them to Facebook when I worked there, and I did refer a good number of them, and I don't think a single one of those people ever got hired. And that's just how it goes, right? Like I think a lot of people overemphasize the idea of referrals, of like you need a referral to apply to companies, and it does help because it gets you to that stage of just having a real human looking at your resume. But you certainly don't like absolutely need a referral. And I don't think they do nearly as much as people think, at least at big tech companies. At like smaller startups, it might mean a little bit more. As a fresher, how much knowledge do I need to know in React.js? It depends on what you're doing. But most tech companies do not care that much that you know X, Y, or Z frameworks, because you can learn those on the job. They care a lot more about your fundamental software engineering skills. And then if you need to use React, somebody with good fundamental software engineering skills should be able to learn React pretty easily. So probably not that much. Hello, I'm a 21-year-old computer science student. What do I need to be doing in my free time to further my future career? I know it's vague, but I see people around me doing things. Well, I'm not. I mean, like, frankly, you don't really need to be doing that many things. But if you do want to try to be like ahead a little bit, some things you can do, you can work on coding interview prep a lot. If you get really good at coding interviews, that kind of just gives you a leg up. You can work on personal projects on the side. Of course, if you manage to get like internships, that's great. You could try, if your school has it, like being a teaching assistant or research assistant. That can be like helpful for your resume long term. You can go to hackathons, things like that. But like none of these things are requirements. I know plenty of people who did literally none of the things I just said and still managed to get great jobs out of college. But if you do want to try to like maximize your potential or whatever, I think some of those things could be helpful. Can I get a job at Google with JavaScript and Python without knowing C, C++? Yeah, tech companies, for the most part, at least the big tech companies, do not really care what like programming languages you know. They don't hire JavaScript developers or C developers. They hire software developers, and those software developers should have good fundamental knowledge. And when you have that good fundamental knowledge, you should be able to use whatever programming languages you need. Is it very hard to get hired by Fang? What can I do? Is a graduate degree relevant? So is it hard? Kind of subjective, but I guess like the numbers would say yes. A lot of people apply and far fewer people actually get the job. So I guess so. But I also think it's a fairly reasonable goal too. Like it's not like something that's so unreasonable that you'll never be able to get there if that's a goal of yours. And is a graduate degree relevant? Somewhat. It's not like the most important thing. If you have a bachelor's degree in computer science and then you go and get a master's degree in computer science, that master's degree is probably not going to be the thing that like pushes you over the edge, unless it's like something super specific or like something super impressive, right? Like if you have whatever random bachelor's degree and then you get a master's from Stanford, like sure, that's going to help a lot. But if you have a bachelor's and master's from like equivalent tiered schools and the master's isn't like in some specific thing like machine learning that you're applying to, then it's probably not going to move the needle that much. But then if say you have a bachelor's degree in like English or something random, and then you get a master's in computer science, that of course can help a lot. So it kind of depends on your individual situation. First thing to study is an accountant. I have no idea. What does life look like for a Fang engineer, considering the life balance and stress level and how to handle it? I think it differs by like which company you're working on, the individual, what team you're working on. But one thing I will say is like Fang, and Fang just being the acronym for Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google. What's the other A? Apple, I guess. Is Apple the other A? See, this is how little Fang matters. I don't even know what it stands for. But these are all just companies. They are just jobs, right? Like you're a human first and a Fang engineer second, as much as we love using it in titles. So first of all, there's that. But as far as like the day-to-day at the job, it's not much different than any other job, right? Like you go to work. In the case of engineers, you write code, you go to meetings, you talk about design decisions, and you go home. Some people work a lot, some people don't. In my case, I never worked more than like 30, 35 hours a week, like 95% of the time. Some people work 60-hour weeks all the time. And that can be dependent on the team they're on, the company they're at, and just like their individual motivations and things like that. So it differs a lot. Like in my case, I had great work-life balance. I was never all that stressed. I was very good at at like 5 p.m. saying, okay, time to close the computer. I'm done for the day. And I'm pretty good at just like turning off work, especially when that work is working for a big tech company. Like, it's one thing when it's like YouTube, for example, it's really hard for me to like turn off the YouTube brain because I'm always trying to think of video ideas and things. But when it's like my work at like Facebook, I can kind of turn that off and just kind of move on with my life. But not everybody's as good at doing that. So it's a very long-winded way to say, just kind of depends. Landed a summer internship. That's awesome. Congratulations. What data structure is most commonly seen in technical interviews? I don't know. I mean, like obviously arrays, if that counts. But if you mean things like graphs, trees, etc., I would say, so like arrays by far. And then beyond that, hold on, I need to change the settings of this thing. Beyond arrays, I would say probably like hash maps and then trees and graphs maybe equally, maybe trees a little more than graphs. I don't know if I've ever used a heap in an interview, maybe like once. And then maybe, I don't know, like linked lists are probably up there too with like trees and graphs. What kind of background projects, other internships is necessary to be able to land an internship or a job at Fang? So it really depends on your background. By far the easiest way to get internships at Fang, and it's sort of unfortunate because for most people this answer doesn't help them, but it is to go to one of maybe 15 or so like target universities. So the Ivy League, Stanford, MIT, Texas, Washington, Georgia Tech, Michigan, like the schools that are well known for computer science. When you go to those, the recruiters go to those, and it's honestly like not that difficult. But outside of that, having other internships before can help a lot. Having projects that are actually unique and stand out in some way can help a lot. And then the biggest thing is just being good at coding interviews. Starting my first internship on Thursday, what would I expect? That's awesome. Good luck. Enjoy it. I would say you could probably expect probably about what you think you're going to expect. You're going to be probably given some projects. You will probably have some mentor. You will probably feel very overwhelmed for a while. That is normal. And ask a lot of questions, get a lot of help on things. Probably not a great answer, but what I would expect is to feel very overwhelmed at the beginning and just know that that's normal and ask lots of questions. All right, we're like way behind on questions, so I'm going to go to like the newer ones. And if I skipped your question, just ask it again. Any advice on team matching stage? Not really, because I went through it once with Google, and I ended up turning down the offer. But I would say in general, try to be genuine with yourself and recognize what exactly it is that you want and be upfront about that with the people you're speaking to, whether it be the recruiter or the managers. And I think that can help you get to a position where you're actually going to be happy. Yeah, I don't have like much advice on that beyond that. Did you ever feel like you were never going to become a software engineer? I don't know if it's because the layoffs, the job market, or so many rejections, but sometimes I think I'm never going to break into tech. I mean, I think a lot of people feel like that right now. So just like recognize that you are not alone in that feeling. I graduated at a very different time, and I don't know that I ever shared that feeling. So it's hard for me to give too much advice there. Because like, frankly, I graduated at a time and from a school where everybody was getting big tech internships. So yeah, it's hard for me to really answer that beyond just like recognize that everybody feels that way. You're my favorite among everybody in Algo Expert. Hey, I appreciate it. I find your video solutions most helpful and love Frontend Expert too. Hey, appreciate it. Glad you are enjoying it. Is there any difference between software engineers and developers? I made a TikTok on this the other day. No, there's not. For the most part. So the terms are usually used interchangeably. The most obvious way to see this is that there are essentially 0 companies that have job openings for both. Why is this? Because they're the same job. So most companies just sort of choose one or the other terms and sort of stick with it. Some of them also use other terms, like Amazon calls it a software development engineer. And some of it also is regional. So for example, in much of Europe, I think, I could be wrong about this, but I think a lot of Europe, the term engineer is sort of a like reserved term in the same way that in the US, the term attorney is reserved for people who have actually passed the bar exam and are attorneys. So in a lot of countries, to be called an engineer, you need to pass some engineering test. There's sort of like professional engineering in the US, but you can still have engineer in a job title for lots of things. So in some countries, they can't call them engineers, so they call them developers. But then there's also just some companies that choose one or the other. But for the most part, same job. I'm a sophomore in computer science and math. I want to work in AI research. I have an offer for an internship from an intelligence org for work on a project, but not sure if experience in public sector will be valued in industry. Any experience will be valued in industry more than no experience. So yes, it will be valued. Is it valued the same as experience at Google? No, of course not. But like experience is experience. So yeah, I don't have enough information, but like from the little information I have, it sounds like doing that is better than not doing that, right? Swift or React Native, which has better job opportunities? I have no idea, frankly. I have never done iOS development much. I did a little bit like a decade ago, but yeah, I have no idea. Do US companies hire engineers outside of the US? Some do, some don't. It just depends. Most of the big tech companies have offices in tons of countries. So all the like Fang companies, for the most part, have offices in Europe. They have offices in India and lots of other places. So those companies mostly do. Smaller companies usually don't have offices overseas, but some of them hire remote positions. So it depends. And then some companies choose to only hire in the US. Let's see. How about working at Wall Street firms like Jane Street instead of Fang? I mean, if that's interesting to you and you manage to land those jobs, by all means, you can make a ton of money there. And some people love it. Some of those companies tend to have pretty bad work-life balance from what I've heard, but some of them are a lot better than others. And most of them pay extremely well. Granted, you live in New York City where it's super expensive. Yeah, I have nothing against it. I interviewed at Two Sigma once and it seemed like a cool place. How to be well prepared for a coding interview? Practice, 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 some more practice. Yeah, it's mostly about practice and having like good practice. It's not just like doing as many questions as you can on Algo Expert or LeetCode or wherever. It's about like actually having good practice that's similar to the actual interview. So as you're practicing, for example, actually speak out loud and describe your thought process, because that's something you're going to need to do in the interview. If you can't solve a problem, look at the solution, of course, but don't just like immediately copy that solution into the code editor and be like, check, finish this problem. Words are hard. Finish this problem, because you didn't finish the problem. All you did was copy a solution and then you're going to move on. So instead, look at the solution and then come back like a day or two later and then try to solve it again. See if you retained that information from that solution rather than just copying it over. So things like this, to have sort of practice with intention, I think is the most important thing. Which companies have the most high demand today? I don't really know what that means, Lord of Gaming. I'm currently an intern. They hired me as a SDE, but I'm doing testing using low-code software. How should I get that SDE role? I mean, I would probably say to talk to, it's hard for me to answer this exactly because I don't know like all of the details of this situation, but generally speaking, if the role you're in is not meeting the expectations you had going into that role, I would probably speak to your manager or mentor or whoever it might be about that and try to see like what can be done to like better fit the expectations and what you were looking for. But also recognize it's an internship, so it's not the end of the world. Like you have no obligation to stay there more than a couple months. So on to the next job or internship after it if it's not a good fit for you. Plan on adding more questions practice in Frontend Expert? Honestly, I don't know. Not anytime soon, though. It's sort of at a point where we think the product's really good, and there's diminishing returns of adding more questions, and that's not really the feedback we tend to get. So yeah. And also, there's just like only so many front-end questions. Like the last 10 or so I added took me forever because I like couldn't really think of more good questions. And my general philosophy is that it's better to have really good high quality questions than if we had like 500 questions and say 50 of them were super high quality, then we'd like 450 that were questions, but they're not as good. People are going to waste a bunch of time doing those and not doing the better ones. And I think you're better off just like with good, well targeted practice, if that makes sense. But that's not to like rule it out. Maybe one day. I have the opportunity to start my master's with my university while being an undergrad and thus shaving off a year of the master's. Do you think I should do this? I don't go to a Stanford like school. If you want a master's degree, sure. If you're doing it just to like, cause you can, and you have no desire for a master's degree, then I would say like, why waste a year of your life doing a master's degree if you don't want one? But if you are interested in getting that master's degree, you're interested in the coursework associated with it and whatnot, then sure. I know a lot of people who did like 5th year master's programs and most of them seem to like it, but it's sort of individual and like, just like, does it fit with your own goals? Do you think this is sort of that's not what I meant to click on. This is sort of similar to the last question. Do you think nowadays getting a CS master's degree will benefit a new graduate student when it comes to getting your first software engineering job? So for the most part, not that much. Unless your bachelor's degree is from a far worse school, or your bachelor's degree is not in computer science, or your bachelor's degree is from a different country, or the master's degree is in something very specialized like machine learning. Other than those things, it's probably not going to make that big of a it's not going to make that big of a difference. Jeez, I can't speak today. Hope you're well. Appreciate it. Hope you're well as well. Just wanted to ask, do cool side projects make a good impression while hiring new grads with no prior experience? And also, should we add personal projects to our CV or resume? So yes, add projects to your resume, especially if you have no prior experience. And do they make a good impression? Yeah. If you can have like good, actually unique, interesting projects, it can make a great impression. And especially if you have things that you're actually passionate about, because then when they ask you about it in the interview, you can actually speak passionately about it. And that helps a lot too. React or Vue? React. Vue's cool, but I don't know. I don't see any reason to use it. Like, there's all these different, I made a video about this recently. There's all these different frameworks and libraries and things, and lots of them are cool and do cool things. But like React works well enough, and I'm sure there's cases where it doesn't work as well and you want to use something else. But I don't know. I'm sort of in the camp of like, why fix what ain't broke? And if I want to build something, I'm probably just going to use React because I know it's going to work well, and I can focus my mental energy on things like building the product and like figuring out what features we want rather than trying to implement it in some new framework that's going to have much less like open source software to use and things like that. Not that Vue is new and doesn't have a big open source community, but like I'm sort of in the boat of like, why not just use React most of the time? But some people would disagree with that, I'm sure. Just promoted to L5 at Google. Hey, congratulations. That's awesome. Now what? I have 3 years of experience. Would I be able to get E5 at Meta? What other companies similar total comp? Wait, so 3 years of experience, L5 at Google is senior. That's like very impressive. That's That's like kind of standard by like Facebook terms, but I feel like I don't know many people at Google who got promoted that quickly. So what's next? Honestly, like getting senior somewhere else with higher total compensation would be very difficult. Because one, Google just pays well, but also a lot of companies tend to look at years of experience rather than your current job role. So they're going to see 3 years of experience, and most companies would level you around like the L4, E4, whatever level. Would Facebook give you E5? Maybe, but I doubt it. You would probably be able to get an offer at like the very top of the band of E4 and then probably get promoted pretty quickly. But I kind of doubt they would give somebody senior who only has 3 years of experience, even if it's Google. A startup probably would, but I kind of doubt that Facebook would. Yeah, I know a few people who did things similar to that, and it sort of creates an even bigger like golden handcuffs because it's so hard to leave a company when you get promoted that quickly because most other companies are going to down level you when you move. But that doesn't mean you can't try. Like worst case, the offer's not good and you stay at Google, right? Why do you think most coding YouTubers focus mostly on web development? I've noticed that trying to learn coding on YouTube, if you don't know anything about coding, you'll most likely learn web dev. I mean, this isn't just YouTube. This is the entire industry, and it's because web development is the most common type of coding. It's the thing that people ask the most questions about and want to know the most about. It also is more approachable than most other forms of coding, just because of how like inherently visual it is, and I think in some ways easier to understand at like a base level. So yeah, that's why it's just the most common thing to be doing. But there are plenty of tutorials and things on other stuff. Do you think there's a future in data science? Absolutely. How should one start? I don't know. I'm not a data scientist, but probably a data science degree or boot camp or something. Should I even try if I'm bad at statistics? I don't know. I'm not a data scientist, but I would push back on the idea of being bad at statistics. I think most of the time when people say they're like bad at math, or stats or whatever it might be, I think it's oftentimes an inaccurate statement. And yeah. Do you think learning how to code on YouTube will make you lose out on fundamentals? I mean, it can, but just like make sure you learn the fundamentals somewhere too. If like all you ever do is go through projects and just like learn that way, then yes, you will probably miss out on like some computer science fundamentals, but you can learn those online too. All right, we're kind of behind again, so I'm going to skip to the newer questions. If I skipped your question and you want me to answer it, just ask it again. All right, let's go to this one. If you were a recent grad looking to land a front-end software engineering role post-graduation, how would you go about it? I would work on projects, get good projects on my resume, make them unique and interesting. I would study for coding interviews a lot. I would use Frontend Expert, frontendexpert.io, promo code Connor for 10% off. I wish I had like a banner I could put up for that to like, to promote it. But anyways, I would study for coding interviews a lot, both front-end coding interviews and normal, just algorithm coding interviews, and apply to as many places as you can. And also work on your resume a bunch, make it the best document you've ever made in your life, get a lot of feedback on it from people who are going to give you legitimate critiquing feedback. It's not like your mom who's going to tell you it's the best thing she's ever seen, but people are going to give you actual hard feedback. What's better, front end or back end for you? How can I determine? Try them both and see which one you like better. I've learned React.js. Should I do an internship or improve my skills further, like learning Nextjs? If you can get an internship, do the internship. If you can't, keep learning stuff. But those things aren't mutually exclusive too. Like you can do an internship and also learn Nextjs. So both if you can. But yeah, just keep learning stuff. And what makes a great backend engineer? I don't know. Probably the same thing that makes any great engineer. Good communication skills, good coding skills, good like fundamental understanding of like how systems work. Advice for those who don't have a college degree and want to become a software engineer, self-doubt, any advice? I don't know. It's hard for me to give advice on this because I haven't done this. But I guess generally speaking, just like keep working through it. Recognize that like everybody probably feels the same way that you feel, and people make it past that. So you can do that too. Yeah, I don't have much better to give than that. I'm 15. I want to become a software engineer. Give me some tips. The biggest tip I would give you is take life one step at a time. You got a lot of time, but study hard in school. The better university you can go to, it'll become way easier. Major in computer science if you can. Take AP computer science in your high school if they have it. You can try like learning different things like Codecademy and YouTube and stuff like that. Try like building some games or websites or whatever, apps, whatever it is that's interesting to you. Try different things. Yeah, and don't stress about it too much, like one step at a time. What do you think about the future of code development with AI? What are the strongest areas in tech in 10 years? And do you think the field will be as important and lucrative as it is now? Yes, I think it will be more, but I can't predict the future. And I don't think AI is going to have nearly as big of an impact as people think, at least on like the software development industry. I think we'll have a lot of impact on the world as a whole, but the idea that like it's replacing software engineers, I think is very fundamentally flawed. I'm an Android developer. Do you think I should learn web development as well? If you want to do web development, then sure. If you have no desire to, then probably not. What do you think about being a software engineer and doing YouTube part-time? I currently am a software engineer at a company and I've built this channel from 0 to 1K in almost 2 years. I mean, by all means do it if it's interesting to you. I don't know. Obviously I'm biased. I love YouTube. It's a lot of work, but if it's fun to you, I wouldn't really treat it as a job, especially at like the point you're currently at, but keep doing it if it's interesting to you, and maybe it turns into essentially a job eventually. He's so natural and live compared to videos. Dang. Is that a compliment or should I be insulted? Which one? But I appreciate it, I guess. Turns out he's human. Only part robot. Do you think learning new stuff related to AI is a good idea? Something like prompt engineering or any of those AI related positions? I mean, it can be if those positions are interesting to you, I guess. I don't know. I'm still not convinced on this concept of prompt engineering. I'll be honest. I don't really understand what that is, but I don't know. Thoughts on the current job market? Way worse than it was in like 2020, way better than it was a year ago. But it is what it is. You can't change it. It's the market we live in. I don't think it helps all that much to overthink about it. How do you avoid feeling inferior in comparison to prodigies? I know a freshman who's taking senior courses. He's contributed to the Linux kernel and programmed C standard. I mean, I don't know. You just be your own person. One thing I will say is the people I've met like that are almost always not the people who are actually the most successful in the field. They also generally don't know nearly as much as they're trying to show like they know. And as somebody who's been on the other side and been a teacher, I've had students like that, and they tend to actually not be very good students and actually not have a very deep understanding, and they're just very arrogant and think they know a lot more than they do. I'm not saying all people like this are like that, but a lot of them are. But just be your own person. Don't think about other people too much. I'm a software engineer without a degree. Learn a ton and meet people. Good advice. Appreciate that, Alex. Do you think developers nowadays have shallow knowledge, weak CS fundamentals? Some do. Some don't. I don't know. Do you refer me to any company? No, I cannot refer you to a company. I don't even know who you are. Yeah, I saw this thing about Devin AI, people saying that the entire demo was completely fake. I haven't actually watched the video yet, so I don't know if that's true. But if it is, first of all, I said that a while ago when the demo came out. I was like, this seems too good to be true. And it seemed really sketch that they weren't letting anybody actually use it. But if it's actually fake, like, like, what's going to happen? Like, is this like that seems like a massive lawsuit coming from their investors, right? Or from somebody. But either way, I don't think Devin AI is replacing anybody anytime soon, fake or not. How much programming should someone like me? I'm an undergraduate chemical engineer. How much programming should someone like me in an engineering field? I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you trying to be a software engineer and you have a chemical engineering degree? In which case, you're going to need a lot of programming. If you're saying how much programming do you need to be a chemical engineer, I have no idea. I'm not a chemical engineer, but probably not that much, I would think. Maybe. What do you think about reinventing the wheel to learn about how things work and potentially dog fooding them? For example, writing a logging library from scratch. If the goal is to learn, good. If the goal is to build stuff, bad. Oh, I can't. It's so hard with the vertical stream to like get in the middle of the camera. So if you're just trying to learn, by all means, go do the thing that's going to help you learn. If you're trying to build stuff, don't reinvent the wheel. Just use what exists. We're way behind again. All right, we're skipping to new comments. Hey, Josh, how's it going? 100% agree. I don't know what you're agreeing with, but I also agree. What's the best programming language for the back end of a website? Whichever one is going to let you build the website. It doesn't really matter that much. Whatever you already know, whatever the team that's building it already knows, whatever's going to work best, it can depend. There's not like one best language. If there was, every website would use the same language. Any advice on how to assess how you did during an interview process when companies refuse to give feedback? I keep getting to final rounds of interviews thinking I did really good and then no offer. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do about that because like you can't really get that information from them. But I guess it kind of comes down to two things, right? Like number one is, did you get the questions right, which that you can assess on your own. Remember what the questions were, remember what your answers were, go look up the question after. And if you did get the questions right, then it's probably on the communication side, because if you got the questions right, then clearly you didn't fail that part. But one other thing you can do is just do some mock interviews with people and get feedback from them that way, because that's like in a scenario that's meant to give you feedback. Yo, I'm a penetration tester right now. Do you guys as software devs ever worry about committing secrets, building insecure code, or is that just not your job? I mean, there's a saying at Facebook, I think, or maybe this was somewhere else I worked. Somewhere there was a saying. I don't remember who had it. I think it was Facebook, but I could be wrong about that. Was it Lyft? Somebody had the saying, privacy and security is everybody's job. And I think that's very true. So yes, good engineers think about it. Are engineers unhealthy? It depends. Is having all of your calories consumed via boba and all of your exercise, ping pong and foosball unhealthy? If it is, maybe a little bit unhealthy. And don't forget the rock climbing, actually. You got to rock climb in the summer and ski in the winter. Otherwise, you're no longer a software engineer. Top 3 programming language that you are strong in. JavaScript is the language I know best. After that, I don't really know. Probably Python and Java, I guess. How long did you focus or study for behavioral interviews? Honestly, I never studied for these for a single minute in my life. That's probably not good advice. Like, I'm not saying you should do that, but I just never did, to answer the question of what I did. Yeah, you probably should study for them. It's probably a good idea. At least like have good, like have like a list of stories that are good stories to tell for a lot of questions, and have like good ready-made responses for a lot of the bigger, more common questions. Do you suggest learning as you do projects, or learning first from a course and then do projects? Both. So while you do projects, you will learn. Like if you're doing a project and you're not learning doing that project, something very wrong has happened. But also, you can't just like jump into projects knowing nothing. So both. Go through some courses, try to use the stuff you just learned in some project, go through more like educational content, use that content in projects, and just repeat that process. Will AI replace software engineers like Devin? No, not anytime soon, at least. Not for a very, very long time. But I can't predict the future. Who knows? Maybe we'll all be like part robot soon. That'd be fun. What was the best way you learned JavaScript? I know people hate this answer because it's boring, but it is the truth. A classroom. I took a class at my university. And then eventually I became the teaching assistant for that class. And honestly, I might say I learned more by teaching it than I learned by taking the class. But either way, I think the best way to learn most things is in a classroom. But not the only way. There's plenty of courses and things. And then, of course, like hands-on work too. Like I think that class gave me good fundamental knowledge. Teaching it gave me even more. And then my first internship is where I really like solidified how to take these class things and also understand them in like a more industry focused way. How does how does entrepreneurship happen? I've always been fascinated with the business side. Do you know about how startups rise? It depends. Some startups start from person has problem, person fixes problem, person realizes other people have problem, person sells people solution they already made, person now has business. But then some startups are much less organic than that. And some are just like entrepreneurially minded people come together and say, what is a problem we can solve? And they go out and try to solve that problem, whether it be by sort of bootstrapping it and just building the thing, or by going the like venture capital route and raising money and hiring people and doing it that way. It sort of depends on how people do it, but sort of one of two camps: either solve problem that you actually have, or just like seek out to start a business and go do it. What math concepts do I need to know for programming? Like addition, subtraction would be good. Maybe a little multiplication and division if you're going crazy. You don't need math like almost at all for like 90% of programming. You might need like logarithms once in a while, but I have not done a derivative since I took calculus in college. I have not used, actually I used the Pythagorean theorem one time. I was very proud of myself. So I have used that. But for the most part, you don't need math. Courses from Algo Expert, like Frontend Expert, include a free and excellent behavioral interview course. See, this is the kind of plugging we need out of you, Josh. I am here for this. This is true. If you go to Algo Expert, what is the, hold on, let me see if I can find it. It's like algoexpert.io/something. Content, bonus. Here we go. If you go to that link I just put in the chat, here, I'll highlight it for a second. If you go here, there's a bunch of free like behavioral interview prep videos. So that can be a good way to study for those. Good job plugging. Let's see. What salary can I expect as a fresh software developer? I have no idea. It depends on where you're working. It depends on what country you're in. It depends on where you went to school. It depends on if you had competing offers. It depends a lot on things. Do you use grid layout at all when developing in CSS? Yeah, all the time. Love grid. Prime reacted to you? Yeah, I know. I was very happy to see that I didn't get completely roasted. I was kind of expecting to, but it was cool. I appreciate him doing that. Got like a little bump on the channel from it. I think I gained like 400 or 500 subs from him. So shout out Prime. It's cool to like get the validation of people who are much larger than me in the space, like recognizing my content. So it's cool. You need math if you want to get into graphics programming. Yeah, that's true. There are like subsets of programming that need math, whether it be graphics or like AI and machine learning, things like that. But if you're just like building websites and mobile apps and things like that, you will probably never use any math. Uh, 10 years into front end development. Is it good for next career growth, or should I move to full stack and learn backend now? It's up to you. If you're interested in full stack development, I think that's a natural progression. It's what I think most front end developers tend to do over time, but that doesn't mean you have to. Like there are plenty of people who make incredible careers for like 20 plus years doing super specialized things, even way more specialized than just front end development. But like I think the natural progression tends to be to move towards like full stack, but up to you and what you are interested in. Do you sometimes regret taking a break from developer jobs? Yes and no. I've thought about it a lot. And like there might be a day when I go back and take like a normal dev job again, but I am super grateful for both the financial position it's put me in having left that job, and also the like life position it's put me in to where I haven't had to tell somebody or ask permission to take a day off or go on vacation or like do any life thing in years now. And that's pretty amazing. So I don't like regret it for the most part, but there's times when I miss the normal 9 to 5. What's your opinion on the software engineering career field? I mean, I love it, but it's to each their own. Different people like different things. In my case, it allowed me to do a thing I like a lot and to make good money doing that thing and to live a good life, fairly low stress and whatnot. But if you don't like it, you don't like it. Algebra comes up in UI development. I'm kind of curious what algebra you've been using, but maybe a little bit. Deepest you need to go in math for machine learning? I have no idea. I don't know enough math or machine learning to answer that question confidently. Probably linear algebra, but work at a small company and want to jump to a big tech company. What would you suggest to achieve it? Apply to the big tech companies. Try to get referrals to them if you can. It'll help a little bit. Work on your resume a lot. Get a lot of feedback on the resume first. Study for coding interviews a lot. Yeah. I am 26. Let's see. How do you make a living? Honestly, I have no idea. Let's be honest here. Money shows up. I don't really know why. So this YouTube, TikTok is a big part of my living at this point. And then also I am an instructor on Algo Expert for the Frontend Expert product, as well as an instructor on a few Algo Expert questions. Oh, that's not what I meant to click on, but well, I guess I clicked on it. So let's go back to it. I want to switch from development to some other domain to be more secure. What should I choose? DevOps, cybersecurity, machine learning? You should do whatever is interesting to you. I don't know. That is an impossible question for me to answer. Sizing stuff. Oh, this is for using algebra. Sizing stuff in a 2D coordinate system, solving for variables. I guess that makes sense. You're clearly making more complex UIs than I am. I'm just like display flex and hope it works. Let's not spam VJ, but I will answer your question anyways. Is it right to do coding future without any college? I don't really know what that means. Do you mean can you code without college? Sure. Is it easier if you go to college? Yes. Where are you from? I live in Seattle. Grew up in Texas. Yo, my guy, chill out. I don't know what we're chilling out about. I see these comments kind of late sometimes. But no thanks. Thoughts on Tailwind? Hot take. I don't like it very much. It's fine. Like, by all means, if you like it, use it. I don't really understand the point. I think it muddies up the HTML a ton to where it's kind of disgusting looking, and it makes me sad to look at. But like, it's fine. It does its job. It can help add like consistency to the design and things like that. So if you like it, by all means. I'm not a huge fan. Oh, you're saying chill out to the spammer? I agree with this one. All right. You're about to get timed out if you spam one more question. Is Devin a scam? I don't know. I haven't watched the video. What are people's thoughts on it? I'll watch it after this, but what are people's like thoughts on the Devin was a complete scam conspiracy theory? 1, if Devin's a scam. 2, if it's not a scam. No shot. Not one person's answered my question. All right, we got 1-1. 3. What's 3 mean? I'm seeing some ones. Devin's a scam. Is that what we're thinking? Devin Vassell, not a scam. Facts. Are you answering only short questions? I'll answer any questions. I don't know. I'm just kind of clicking on stuff, to be honest. Here, let's pick this long one for you. I have no CS degree and sometimes don't feel legitimate, I guess. Did you work with people that didn't have CS degrees in big tech? Tons of them. Yeah. And just like recognize like everybody sort of feels that way, including people with degrees. It is what it is. But what microphone do you use? This is, I just realized if I move it, you can't hear me. This is a Shure SM7B. The same microphone that like the whole world uses. Favorite CS class in college? Probably programming languages, I think. That class was fun. How to prepare for entry-level front-end interviews? Well, you see, you can go to frontendexpert.io. You can use promo code Connor for, I think, 10% off. But no, seriously, well, you can do that, but practice. Make sure you understand the fundamentals of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript well. Also, like understand or figure out what exactly it is that you can expect to be asked by the company you're interviewing for, because some focus a lot on the front end and on fundamentals. Some might focus on like frameworks like React, and others might just ask you like general software engineering questions. So understand what it is you're going to be asked and then study for it. It's kind of all there is to it. What are some cool projects you made before your first job? Honestly, basically none. Like I had a few projects, but they were not cool. It is what it is. No need to like over focus on having like the coolest projects ever. My projects kind of sucked. The honest answer. Regular CS bachelors cram to pass exams and do not have deep knowledge. I have a CS degree, learned way more from self-learning than lectures in college. People fantasize CS degrees. Yeah, it's kind of true. Like, if you think people with CS degrees know so much more than you, think about every class you've taken in your life, whether it be in high school or wherever, and think about how little you actually know from those classes. This is the same with people who have CS degrees. The vast majority of people who have CS degrees, like, were out partying after class and got like B minuses in their classes and don't remember any of it. Like, it's not to say they don't know anything, but like, they don't like know everything about computers either. All right, YouTube, how do I time somebody out in the chat? I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do it on YouTube, so he lives for now. But please do not spam questions or I will ban you because I don't know how to time you out. If I see the same question twice again, you will be banned. Let's see. What was the biggest challenge you faced when working at Meta? So like, there's a bunch of different like cafeteria, like restaurant things at Meta. So it's like a pretty big challenge every day deciding which one to eat at. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, it's probably more about like the politics. Like, I can't think of any like major engineering challenge that was just like such an insurmountable challenge. It was so hard to do anything. I feel like the bigger challenges were like getting things approved by higher ups and going through corporate hoops and things like that. Is web development still a high demand career field? You're on a website right now, aren't you? Well, maybe you're on an app, but yes. Please listen me. I want a roadmap, sir, for a good developer like you, because you are my idol. I would not idolize me. You don't know anything about me. But I do have a roadmap on my YouTube channel. I think it's called like How I Would Learn Full Stack Development or something. Just like go to my YouTube channel and sort by most popular, and it's like my second most viewed video ever. React versus HTMX, which are you picking? React. HTMX is cool, but honestly, I don't really fully understand it. Like, I don't understand why it's becoming so popular right now. But don't fix what isn't broken. No reason not to just use React. In most cases. I'm sure there's plenty of times where HTMX is a better choice, but what do I work on at Meta? So this is something that's, I think, eye-opening for a lot of people. The vast majority of people who work at these big tech companies work on things you've never seen and have never heard of. So in my case, I worked on internal privacy tooling at Meta that was used by like privacy analysts and lawyers and things when they were dealing with privacy incidents to make sure that they were like properly managing and mitigating them. So yeah, that's what I worked on. Let's see. Best tip to get a software internship during college: play the numbers game. If you apply to one job, your odds of getting that job pretty bad. If you apply to 5 jobs, you have a little bit higher chance now. And what happens if you apply to 100, 500, a million, right? Like, the more you apply to, the more chances you have. Is it Michael Jordan quote? You miss every shot you don't take? Or is that, I don't know if that's actually a Michael Jordan quote. I might be misquoting somebody, but yeah, generally say that's probably the best tip is apply with like intent and like make sure you are making good applications everywhere you're applying and that you're actually at least somewhat interested in those roles. But I see so many people who are like, I can't get an internship. And I'm like, how many did you apply to? 5. Well, yeah. I think I applied to like 100 my sophomore year of college. Is that a Wayne Gretzky quote? That's what I was thinking. I was like, I don't know if it's Jordan or Gretzky. What's better, front end or back end? Whatever is more interesting to you is better. This is interesting. What disadvantages does React have in your opinion? I mean, there's certainly disadvantages in terms of like performance compared to a lot of newer things. There's also some disadvantages in terms of like some sort of bloat, because the library's gotten so big, which I guess is sort of related to performance. But I don't know. I don't think there's like, when I choose to use React on a project, I can't think of like a major trade-off that comes up in my head where I'm like, oh, I'm going to be doing this. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like people put so much thought into what libraries and frameworks to use, and I just don't think it actually is that important most of the time. Social environment at Meta. So people ask a lot about like the culture of Meta and Google or whatever big tech company. I never worked at Google, but I'm just like, using it as an example. And I think it's not really that much of a thing because the companies are so big. So it's more about like your individual team. But generally, I found that it was a fairly social environment. I was never like super close friends with anybody at work. Like there were a few times I hung out after work with people at Meta. When I was an intern, I was like people I met in my internships, like how long, 6 years ago now or something like that, or like some of my closest friends to this day. But when I was like full time, it was pretty rare to like hang out with people after work or something. Like people have families and kids and stuff, and like want to leave work and go live their lives. But like at the office, people were like ate lunch together every day, stuff like that. I don't know. It was chill. Have you tried WebAssembly with Rust yet or plan to? This is something I say like every like 6 months that I'm going to go do, and then I never do. I've tried it like a very tiny bit, but I don't like have strong opinions on it yet because I don't know much. So kind of, but not really. What is your opinion on AI? Is it going to affect newcomers? It's going to affect them and making it easier to learn. I think that's about it, at least for the time being. How'd you get into programming? I don't know. I was always kind of interested in it. I guess like the very first form of programming I ever did was like Lego robotics in like middle school. And then in high school, I sort of tried to learn stuff on my own. Didn't learn all that much. Then I took AP computer science, learned a little bit more. Then I went to university and obviously took a million computer science classes. What programming language is best for a beginner developer, and what's your salary? My salary is quite literally $0, so that's cool. It's however much I end up making. But programming language is best for beginner developers. I don't know. Depends on what you're interested in. Generally speaking, I think Python is probably the easiest language to learn, or one of the easiest, at least the easiest of like the massively used ones. But Python, JavaScript, Java, C#, I don't know. Just whatever's, figure out what it is you actually want to do, and then learn what you have to learn to do that thing, rather than just like learning random things. Mac all the way. It doesn't really matter that much, but I prefer Mac a lot. How do you make friends? I have no idea. But if you find out, let me know. Come back and explain. How often do you use JS generator functions? I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever used one other than like for like teaching about them or like on a test or something. What do you think about Azure certifications? So certifications in general, if it's teaching you a thing that you want to learn, by all means, go learn the thing. If you're doing it because you're like playing Pokemon and trying to catch them all with certifications, probably a waste of your time. So like if you're just doing it for the piece of paper, I think the only piece of papers that are worth doing just for the piece of paper is maybe a bachelor's degree. Beyond that, learn things because you actually want to learn them. That is not what I meant to click on, but I guess we're answering it. Thoughts on full stack developing? Chill. Can I play games on Mac? Not really. If you want to play games and code, probably get a Windows computer. Are you using Vim or one of the bad tools? I don't really understand Vim, to be honest. Like, I understand it. Like, I kind of know how to use it. I'm not like good at it. But I never found I was more efficient using Vim than just using like VS Code. So no, I don't use Vim. I don't have many thoughts on the Devin exposed video because I haven't watched it yet. So I'm kind of behind on that. Maybe I'll make a reaction video to it. I don't know. A lot of people are asking about it. I just don't really like making pure reaction content. It feels kind of lazy. But then again, lazy's fun. How many questions have I solved on LeetCode? Very few. I mostly used Algo Expert when I was preparing, but like, honestly, I probably did like 20 questions. I never did very many. But it just like depends on where you're coming from. Like, I was able to get away with that because I had a good fundamental understanding of data structures and algorithms. I had taken a data structures class. I took 2 data structures classes in college and then 2 pure algorithms classes in college. So like, I had a very deep understanding of those things already. Yeah, so it just kind of depends. Is it worth the effort to get into Fang? I don't know. Depends on like your goals in life. If working at Fang aligns with what you want to do in life, then sure. If it doesn't, then no. There's nothing like special about it. They're just companies. They're just jobs. They're jobs that happen to pay well and have good benefits and things, but they're just jobs. No reason to over romanticize them, even if I do have it in my heading up here or in the title of the stream. Do you need leak code for companies other than Fang? I mean, generally speaking, most tech companies these days do coding interviews in like the same manner. Not all startups do, some don't. And if you're applying to like super random places that aren't tech companies, not all of them will either. Like if you live in Montana and you're applying to like a local bank as a software engineer, they're probably not going to give you questions like that. But if you're applying to like tech companies, like if the company is based in Silicon Valley or New York City, they're probably going to ask you like leak code algo expert type questions. If it's not a tech company or they're not based there, they probably will not, but they might. Can you become self-taught in cybersecurity? I don't know, probably, but I don't know much about cybersecurity, honestly. Have you made any games? A few, not any good ones. Favorite data structure or algorithm? BOGO sort. Always BOGO sort. Of serious ones, I would say, I don't know. As much as people hate it, I think dynamic programming is kind of cool. Is the world ending? I hope not. But will we ever know? Sheldon Cooper. I'll take it. There's worse things you could say to people. I like that you said it twice, though. Like you doubled down on it. Like you were like, oh, he didn't see it. So I gotta make the Sheldon Cooper joke twice. Is there a difference between software engineer, software developer, and programmer terms? I made a TikTok on this the other day. Programmer is a skill, right? Like programming is a skill, and a programmer is one with that skill. It's not really a job title for the most part. But software engineer, software developer, same thing. The easiest way to see this is try to find a company that has both, where like both are jobs that you can apply to. They pretty much don't exist because it's the same job. The terms both exist for a few reasons. One, just people like to say different things, and people like to feel special and call themselves engineers. But also because in some countries, the term engineer is like a reserved term where you have to like pass a test and be like a professional engineer to be able to use the term. So because of that, some countries you have to be called a software developer unless you are like that form of engineer. So that's part of it. But for the most part, same job. Do you have a software engineer job or are you your own boss man? I don't work as like a full-time software engineer anymore now. I left Facebook like 2.5 years ago. Most of my time and effort now is just spent on content though. Yo, this fight was kind of crazy. We're not going to turn this into a UFC stream, but the gotta respect the one the broken nose in the first round and then just fighting through it. Like you break my nose, I'm down for 6 weeks. Like you aren't seeing me out of bed for 6 weeks and I am crying for like the first 48 hours. And then you poke me in my eye twice? And then the ending to just kind of send it and go for it. Respectable. Paul versus Tyson, who's winning? Nobody. Do you actually earn a living making content? Kinda. Yeah. Somehow. By some miracle. Let's see. Why are you known to hate backend developers on Twitter? I don't hate backend developers. And I've tweeted literally one time in my life, and it was because some scammy company tagged me in something and was like, thanks for Connor Ardman for doing, I don't remember what they claimed I did. And I literally just commented on it and was like, hey, I don't know who these people are, but this is fake. Other than that, I've literally never said a word on Twitter. So I don't know what you're talking about. Are Fang positions generally high pressure in competitive environments? They can be. I think it just depends. I never felt this personally, but I think some people do. Depends a lot on the individual, on the team, things like that. I think I'm just like generally pretty good at like detaching myself from my work and just like not being that stressed about it. But not everybody's like that. Like I struggle to relate to the idea of like people who have a bad day at work, and then when they get home, they have a bad day at home because of their bad day at work. Like to me, like the second I leave work, it's like, okay, work doesn't exist anymore. It's harder to do that now because I work from home and like YouTube and stuff is my work. And like the better I do in that, like very directly, the more money I make. But when I was working as like a developer at Facebook, it was like, it was pretty easy for me to sort of detach, but I know not everybody's like that. Bro, why don't you answer any of my questions? Because there's a lot of questions. I have nothing against you. Honestly, I haven't even seen one of your questions. I answer a question and then I click on another question and I probably skip 20 every time I do it. But how to get a job at companies like Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft. Same way as any other company. Make a good resume, apply to the job, be good at coding interviews, and probably be kind of lucky. Full stack Python, full stack Java, which is best? I don't know. There's no best. There's different. Do you have any non-CS friends? Nah. Of course. Why'd you leave Facebook? Do you ever plan to go back to the industry? So I left to join Algebra Expert to build the Frontend Expert product, the front-end coding interview prep product. My reasoning was essentially that it aligned better with like what I wanted to do with my life and my values and the way I wanted to live my life. It allowed me to do things like create this YouTube channel. Yeah, it just allowed me to pursue more of like what my goals were. Will I ever go back in the industry? Maybe. We'll see. I thought you had someone else filtering the questions for you. No, I literally just have the chat next to me and I answer a question and then I click on another one. I am not fancy enough to have someone else doing it for me. If only. Hey, Connor. Hey, Tamal, I think. My question is, the way now job requires a lot of things like build a project with user base, DSA, CP, I don't even know what that stands for, open source things outside of the box, a lot more. Isn't it too much for an entry level? I think you're overcomplicating things. I don't even really know exactly what you're saying. But I don't know. The expectations of entry level developers though is not high, to be frank. So no, I don't think so. Are you looking for a backend developer you can hire for cheap? My father told me to look for a job this way. No, I'm not hiring. And I'll be honest, that's some very questionable advice. If somebody hires via YouTube chat, I don't know if that's somebody I'd want to work for. Is freelance experience good for your resume? Yeah, it can be. What can you get out of Algo Expert? I mean, I'm not here to like shill Algo Expert to you, but it is a coding interview prep platform. If you find the platform helpful, it can help you prepare for coding interviews. Some people like it. Is it possible to get a job in Fang from Pakistan? I mean, some of the companies probably have offices there, but if you mean like get a job in the US from Pakistan, frankly, it's going to be very difficult. It's probably possible, but like you have to think they get more applicants than they need from the US already. So like, why would they go through the effort to pay for somebody to relocate from another country and deal with visas and all that stuff? But they probably have offices there. And if you want to get a job in the US, I'm not an expert on this, but my understanding is that it tends to be easiest to like do a master's degree in the US first and then do it that way. that's what I've seen most people doing, but I wouldn't really take that as advice because, again, I clearly haven't done it. Is AI a danger to software developers? No. Or are there black lines on the side? Can you fix this? Yeah, so it's a vertical stream because when you stream vertically, it shows up in the YouTube Shorts feed. But the downside of that is that if people watch it on desktop, it looks really awkward. And I wish there was a way to do both. There's kind of a way, like I can just make 2 streams and have one be like the Shorts one and one be the horizontal one. But then I have 2 chats, and then like it's confusing for viewers if they go to my channel and I'm live in 2 places, and I have less total viewers on each, which probably isn't good for like the algorithm and stuff. So yeah, that's why there's black bars though if you watch on a computer. No, I don't have much experience leading like a large team other than I led a team of teaching assistants at one point as like a head TA for probably had 20 or so teaching assistants, but it's a little different. Not like a dev team. What language should we learn for internships? I don't think it matters that much. Like probably the easiest answer is like Python and JavaScript, but like depends on what you're interested in. And most jobs, like it doesn't matter that much. Like if you have good fundamentals, you can learn whatever languages you need very quickly. What is the best tech stack for CSS and JavaScript? I don't know. There's no best. The best is whatever works for whatever you're doing. Getting a job at Meta, Netflix, Google, etc. is a dream for many people, me. But to leave such a job being successful is a galactic leap in understanding life. I mean, I guess I think people, if you're referring to like me leaving, people ask me about it a lot, and I think people get the impression that I took this like massive leap of faith, and like there was some level of that, and there was some level of risk and whatnot with leaving, but it's not like I left for nothing and left with like no guarantees and pay and things. So I don't know. I don't think my parents were particularly happy about it. So I guess there's some leap of faith there that clearly other people saw. Maybe I was just blind to it and I was like, nah, it's all going to work out. But what would you choose for mobile app development, React Native or Flutter, and why? I don't know. I would choose React Native because I know React and I have never used Dart in my life, but I don't like have any opinion on one over the other beyond that. I'm coming from industrial automation with PLCs at Tesla. PLC acronyms. I don't know what that stands for. I know the basic syntax of Python, but not much about data structures and algorithms. How long would you estimate until I'm interview ready? I don't know. Probably a long time, but different people can learn at different rates. Different people have a different amount of like time per day they can devote to studying. So I don't know. It's impossible for me to answer that. And like I don't have like a very good grasp on like how much you do or don't know. Is a BS in math graduate, can I get a job as a software developer at Fang? Your experienced guy, please tell me. I mean, can you? Yes. Is it easy? No. Is it harder than if you have a computer science degree? Yes. Is it easier than if you have an English degree? Yes. So I don't know. It's possible. I know a few people who worked in Fang with math degrees. Is everything working out now after you left Facebook? I'd say so. All right, we'll stay live for another, let's do 5 more minutes. And that'll be a 90-minute live, and I think we'll call it. Should we do a bachelor's or study computer science or software engineering in 2024 at the time when like AI, Devin, blah, 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 blah. Don't worry about AI. Do what you're passionate about. Do what's interesting to you. Don't worry about some AI chatbot that really can't do much, to be honest. And one that apparently is like completely fake. I don't know. I've been hearing rumors in the chat. Is it what you expected? I'd say so. Kind of. I don't know. My intention was never to like leave Facebook and never go back. My intention was legitimately like leave, build Frontend Expert, and then like decide from there, but probably go back. And now it's been like, I don't know, 2.5 years. So I guess it wasn't what I expected in that way, but like, I don't know, kind of is. In general, do Fang engineers specifically distinguish between front end or back end, or do they all just call themselves software engineers? So there are front end engineers and sometimes back end engineers at Fang. Most people are just software engineers. Like my title is just software engineer, but also people recognize like individual skills and talents and whatnot and interests. It's like I was more interested in front end, so I just chose to do more front end work. And my manager's chill with that. My team was chill with that. But like my title was just software engineer, and that tends to be the case for most people, but not everybody. And tasks are assigned based on skills. Yeah. The only thing I'd say is tasks tend to not be assigned too much as picked up. There tends to sort of be a pool of tasks, and people within reason kind of figure out what they want to work on. But that can depend on like management style and stuff. Maybe that's not true for everybody, but I felt like I had pretty good control over what I wanted to work on. Any advice for an incoming meta intern? Hey, congrats on the internship, assuming you got one based on the question. The biggest thing I can say is ask a lot of questions. From the beginning, be very clear, or try to be very clear about like what the expectations are for you from your manager. So figure out what exactly it is they expect of you. And as you're going, ask a lot of questions, both about technical things and like stuff you don't understand. So like if there's like 30 minutes where you're just doing nothing because you're like, I don't understand how to do this, go ask a question to somebody. And like, don't feel bad about that. Like they are there for that. The expectation of your manager is that they get far less work done while you were there because they are going to be answering so many of your questions. And like, that's okay. Like that's the expectation. Ask lots of questions, focus on you and your project. Don't worry too much about like annoying somebody or whatever. And then also be asking questions about like how you're doing and constantly check up and like make sure that you're making progress and meeting expectations and everything like that. And then try to find ways to exceed those expectations. So try to find ways to take initiative and do things that weren't necessarily asked of you. And to just like contribute to the team. So like go to team meetings and try to like, it can be daunting as an intern, especially at the beginning, but near the end of the internship, especially try to like speak up a little bit in meetings and give opinions, things like that. Things that just kind of showcase that you're ready to be a software engineer. Is it possible to get an offer during an internship or not anymore? Yeah, for the most part. Is web development still a high demand field? Yeah. You're using a website right now, aren't you? What do you advise to focus on nowadays? Whatever is interesting to you. All right, let's find one more good question and then we'll call it there. How many years of experience did you have when you got into Fang? 0. I got into an internship and then worked full time after that. Let's see. All right. As somebody who works on the front end, how do you get inspiration to create good web design when you solo creating projects and designers are not in the calculation? So just find other designs out there that you think are cool. One thing I like to do now is like when I see something cool, I just write down the link. So I have like a bunch of links and I sort of take things from different places at different times in the future. So that's a good thing to do. Find websites in like adjacent niches that are doing something cool. So like if you're building, if you're building like a phone website, I don't know, like a website about phone. I don't know. It's the first thing that's closest to me. If you're building a website about phones, go look at websites about computers and cameras and things, like sort of related things, and see what they're doing that's cool and see how you can like use that on your own. And I think that's a lot better than looking at like direct competitor websites, because when you do that, it kind of feels like you're just like copying your competitors, which is no good. So yeah, find inspiration from places like that as you are just like using the internet, write things down, stuff like that. All right. I think we're going to call it there. Appreciate you all chatting. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it. It helps me a lot. Give the stream a little like before you go too. Thumbs up, likes are always good. And yeah, hopefully I'll start doing these more. I think it's like my third time doing it on YouTube. They're fun, so I'll try to do this more often, but yeah. Thank you. Have a good one. Appreciate it. You too. All right. Have a good morning, night, whatever time it is for y'all. New subscriber. Hey, we love to see that, Alejandro. Let's go. We got at least one. We got one. It starts with one, everybody. All right. Have a good night.